Grey College, one of the greatest rugby schools in the history of South Africa. Ruan Pienaar, Frans Steyn, Johan Goosen, Bismarck du Plessis, Cobus Reinach. How is it possible that a school in the middle of Bloemfontein is producing such high caliber athletes? With that question in mind, I went up to Bloem to try and find some answers.
Yesterday when I stood here, the Springboks were sitting down at the bottom and this door was literally shaking.
Yeah, just look straight ahead at mine. Yeah.
Grey College. I mean, as a boy who grew up in Pretoria, went to St Albans College, played loads and loads of rugby in my time. Yes, we were a decent rugby school, but we weren't Grey College. Grey College always felt like this mystical beast creature of a school that we just couldn't compete with. I mean, we never played the likes of Uppies or Paul Jim or Paul Ruiz or Grey College. It feels like as a pupil, as someone who grew up in Pretoria, that Grey College was always on this pedestal, always this beastly rugby school that we could never touch. So having the opportunity to go to Bloemfontein and to make a story about it felt really, really special. Then we pull up to Grey College and it's not this massive buildings or grounds. It's not like a Michael House or a Hilton that you go to and you sort of starstruck. It's this very humble school and grounds that you wouldn't necessarily relate to a massive, massive sporting school. Once you stepped on the grounds, you could feel that this place was a little bit different. The vibe, the history, the tradition, you could just sort of feel it when you walked onto the grounds of Grey College. I think Grey College, it's unlike any school I've ever seen. It had a museum. I've never ever seen a museum on a school premises. It had a great gym. The hall, the main hall that they do their ceremonies in was absolutely historic and traditional, and I think we'll get into that a little bit more. But it's just a school based around history and tradition, and they remember where they come from, which is what I think makes Grey College so special.
More people watching rugby here than
So we get there and we're greeted by the one and only Ryan McLaren.
That's nicely bowled. That's very well bowled. He likes that, McLaren, and up goes the finger as well. Good stuff from Ryan McLaren.
Now this was quite an experience for me because growing up, Ryan McLaren obviously played for the Proteas sort of between that 2010, 2015 era. I was about 12 to 17, so sort of in high school watching Ryan McLaren play for the Proteas. I played cricket and rugby at high school, and just being able to speak to him for 30 minutes while he gave us his tour around Grey Bloem. I mean, he's just such a nice guy, a great ambassador for the school, and it was quite a surreal experience for me. And then we go on the tour and we started off in the museum.
It just gives you a bit of a picture, an idea of the history and the tradition of the school. Founded in 1855, when obviously with Grey High School here today, they are brother school who shared the same founder in Sir George Grey. You'll see a lot of previous headmasters of the schools. Andrew Murray, you'll see Dr. Janus Brill, and guys who are now named, the hostels in the high school are named after them. So you've got a Murray House as the Grade 8 hostel, Brill House is there sort of 9 and 10, and then you go into Leith House as well. Yeah, you've got a display of blazers. And it's not necessarily, yes, you'll see a Springbok rugby blazer, but there's also South African cricket, clay target shooting, all those types of. So the history and the tradition there is that these guys after years would come and hand over their South African colours. And the whole concept around it is we want our boys growing up with history, with tradition, with values, and that inspiration to want to obviously go on and represent your country.
Again, just that tradition, that history that Grey College try and preserve and teach to the next generations, that these new generations kind of remember where they come from and who stood before them. Putting it all into one place in a museum is very, very special. I mean, you walk in there and there's just Springbok jerseys everywhere, not necessarily just rugby jerseys, cricket, badminton, water polo, whatever it is, athletics. They just remember everyone who walked the halls before them and try and teach those traditions and history to the pupils that are there now.
As you know, this is the Tomix rugby mascot, right? And you'll see the first team rugby captain will run out with Tomix, the little bear. Tomix is retired now this year, 100 years. The new Tomix will start pretty much today.
In the museum, again, just on the history thing, I mean, everything in Bloemfontein goes back to Grey College. I mean, Bram Fischer Airport. Bram Fischer was a pupil at Grey College. Nelson Mandela has been to Grey College. You've got guys like Hansie Cronje who have come through Grey College, who was a cricketing legend. I mean, there's just so many guys, and the way they've preserved their history in that museum so that it can be learned and taken up by the current generation is something I've never seen before and something truly special.
In the Rivonia trial, the legal representative was Bram Fischer, who represented Mr. Mandela in the trial. Now, Bram Fischer is an old grey.
Really?
Yes.
And Bram Fischer Airport.
At Bram Fischer Airport, so obviously anti-apartheid activist, etc., etc. And subsequent to that, we've now got a Bram Fischer Trust, which is basically founded to assist scholars or pupils who cannot financially afford to attend Grey College. You know, whoever investors, old boys who feel that they want to assist in that way. So that's basically how that sort of trust started there.
Oh. We then moved from the museum, and Ryan McLaren took us to the main hall where they have their assemblies and sort of school meeting.
You walk up here, now you were asking about the rugby guys.
Yeah.
So yesterday when I stood here, the Springboks were sitting down at the bottom, and this door was literally shaking with the boys waiting and singing, and obviously build up tools, you know, the gears, if you want to call it. But what you do is they'd walk in here and this would be packed, absolutely packed.
Walking in there, the history jumps off of the walls at you. I mean, the chairs that the boys sit on are tens of years old. There's so many boards on the walls with ex-rugby captains, cricket captains, head boys, headmasters. There's Springbok jerseys, rugby, cricket, athletics, sort of all around this hall, again emphasizing that tradition. Who has stood before you at the school? Make them proud. These are the people that have walked these halls, sit in these chairs.
This is basically the heart of the school where we're at the moment. You know, it's started from the early days. You'll see the chairs that have been here have been maintained over years. What you see up there is the gallery, which was put in 2000, basically just to accommodate more pupils sitting in, because otherwise there's just not enough space. I mean, you can think 1,150 kids here. You're trying to get it's just impossible. You can't. Trying to fill the boys in as much as possible. But as you sit here, you'll pan around and you'll see cabinets around the hall there with past Springboks and South African representatives. So
again, that feeling of tradition, that feeling of history is everywhere in the school. And the hall, the centerpiece of the school, might have been the most historic part of the school.
Someone said, what is it about this place that is so special? Because a lot of people walk in and say, but there's something here.
Yeah.
There's something that you feel here. And I was like, well, we don't know, can't explain to you, but there's some sort of magic.
It is that, I'd also get that feeling of...
Yeah, the history and the tradition of rugby over here speaks for itself.
Yeah.
Every young little boy that even starts in grade 1, that's what he wants to do.
Yeah. Then from the hall, we moved to the gym. The gym is a normal gym. I mean, I've seen schools in South Africa with a lot better equipment, a lot better facilities, but
some of the training teams are in here, 5 o'clock in the morning before school, which obviously puts a bit of a challenge on the maths and science class. Pretty much most of the sports have got a designated conditioning coach, be that for rugby, hockey, cricket, whatever the case is. Specific programs being written for them, pre-season, in-season, off-season, whatever. There's physiotherapists, a high-performance manager, and then they've also got a bike and head assist, to help them with injury and recovery and so on.
The message that Ryan sort of got over to us is this is where all the hard work happens. This is where the blood, sweat and tears happened. This is where there's no excuses. You can pitch up for gym every single day. You can put your best into gym. There's no ability here. This is all about hard work, and gym isn't overly modernized. It's been kept as sort of this raw gym. I would assume they haven't renovated it in a couple of years. How many times a week or a day do the rugby boys get in here?
I'd be surprised if there's a day off. No, I'm joking. There's a very specific program. I'm probably not going to say that they're on weights every single day. I can tell you now that the standard of training and expectations that they have here is second to none. There's no shortage in terms of their conditioning. Skill, they can coach skill and everything, but when it comes to physical conditioning and stuff, that there's no questions asked, and they demand a lot. And I think what it also helps is what we found a lot of our boys that have gone through the rugby system and in this great college as well, is that it makes their adaptation into professional sport a lot easier, because the standards that are set obviously at professional sport, as you know, with the Bull Sharks and wherever, and the same with the other sports, is that it's a pretty high standard, and then these boys move into those programs and feel like they can adapt pretty easily.
Again, you feel that oldness of the school. You feel like this is where the boys come to put in the work, and that you don't need all this special equipment and machines. They've got squat racks, they've got dumbbells, and they've got benches. You don't need all this fancy equipment to be a top rugby school. So once our tour was done, we then made our way down to the field, and it was time for Grey College versus Grey High, the Derby Day. So the under-13s are busy playing and the first team kicks off in about 30 minutes. But this place, I've been trying to describe it to myself, but it's special. The history here, there's just something intangible that you can't touch at Grey College. The school, from when you start here to when you end, that's all the kids want to do here is go play a South African sport. And they're expecting about 10,000 people to come to a schoolboy game today, which is absolutely unheard of. More attendance than some URC games, more attendance than the Currie Cup. The school is, I'm lost for words. I don't even know how to explain the love they have for sport. There's just something intangible here that when you walk onto the grounds, it's just special. It's really special. And when I tell you that there were 10,000 people, I think that might be a little bit of an understatement. And the passion that you just feel for rugby within the stands, the boys running onto the field, the boys singing their war cries on the stands is something very, very special. I mean, the people in the stands know the players' names on the field. It's almost like watching a Currie Cup game or a URC game. Even if they're casual watchers, know the boys that are busy playing on the rugby field. It's absolutely crazy.
The Grey boys are going to run under this tunnel right here below us. I just can't get over how many people are here. We have a Springbok game in a couple of hours and it feels like all people at the school care about is the first team and watching the first team game. It's absolutely crazy. And while it was a good game and Grey College ended up running away with it at the end, this video wasn't about the derby. This was about investigating a high school that is rich in history in South Africa, that has produced so many high caliber athletes, so many Springboks. I think it's very difficult to put into words what makes Grey College so special. I think you need to go there, you need to feel it because it's in the air. There's something extremely intangible about what's going on at Grey College. It's not the gym, it's not the facilities. I don't even think it's the players on the field. I think it's much, much deeper than that. It's history since 1855 when that school was brought in to South Africa, the third oldest school in South Africa. It's the people that have walked those halls. It's the love and the passion that the pupils have for the school, as well as what they're trying to do, where they're trying to go, trying to become Springboks. It's this love of an entire community of Bloemfontein that sort of come together at this one school in the middle of Bloemfontein, and just the passion pours out of every single one, from the pupils to the teachers to the parents to someone like us who's just watching. You can feel that intangible passion, and I'm lost for words. That's and maybe the best way I can describe it is something special is going on there that you can't quite put your finger on. And maybe going there and trying to figure out exactly what makes Grey so great was an impossible task in itself.